fruits and then close down at 8 or something like that? Or?
No, I think the notice from DOT says through October
You might
4th.
make it
and
home
it's right,
tonight.
it's on the door outside and it's
Yeah.
in the hallway
Luckily,
too.
it's not too long of a
So no
drive.
8 to 3 closure then?
Or what?
I didn't read the thing, I don't know.
Have to wait when
It may just be, it may just be workday, their workday.
Right. Did you make a public statement about your skunkies?
I told my adjacent neighbors here, if you smell skunk, it's me.
Really? You get sprayed?
My dog did. And it's, yeah, all over the place.
Thought you'd want it on PBTV or something like
Yeah.
that.
We could make sure it gets in the minutes.
Could you see these
Yeah.
clouds?
The meeting moved very swiftly.
Rebecca was
I think we're onto
remanded to the
something
corner.
here. Might just step in dog poop next time. Quickly they go.
Gonna get thrown off the board.
Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. We're ready, Jules?
Yep.
Okay, so today is October 1st, 2015. Roll call of members. Mike Ahern, Chair, Steve Rhodes, Vice Chair, John Kelly, Rebecca Hanson, Steve Whitman, Bill Bolton, Selectman's Rep. And for tonight, Steve will be a voting member, because we don't have a full team. Public comments unrelated to the agenda? Okay. Brings us to administrative matters. A site plan review, PID 212-029 Pemmy Valley Habitat for Humanity Retail Store. Is there someone to represent?
Yeah, Frank
Okay.
McLean,
Yes, hey Frank.
again,
Yep.
Executive Director, here for any.
Frank, usually you kind of present the application. If you wouldn't mind coming up, just give us a quick overview.
Sure enough.
Sorry, we usually have a podium, but it's doing double duty tonight.
That's what threw me off.
Yeah, I know. Anywhere it's comfortable to stand.
We got into, the abutters were notified
Yeah, oh,
for a
absolutely.
public hearing. So Frank, basically, you can kind of give a brief synopsis of what you're planning and then show us the plans that you have and,
Yep, so I think you guys all have the little things that we handed out. The plan is to move from our current location in Holderness and relocate to the parcel that you see there, which was the former Lakes Region Community Services Office Building, which was in the past car dealer, a number of different things. I think we went over that before. But we want to move from Holderness and relocate there and operate our retail store, which the profits from that store go directly to the affiliate to support the build. And so that's the end result, is building the houses for families. And we service 14 towns locally, with Plymouth really being the central location of the towns that we service.
so any questions at this point before we entertain an offer to whether the application is complete or not?
I would like to also just make you aware that the shaded area is the area that we're going to occupy, and the other areas are already occupied by other tenants. So there's actually people already in the building. It hasn't been vacant, just that front section has been vacant. That's this one.
Okay, is there a motion from someone on the board?
Move to accept the application as complete.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by John Kelly. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, that brings us to, if there's anything else that you'd like to add before we go to a public hearing? No?
Thank you.
All right. All right, so if there's no questions for the applicant at this time, I'll open it up to the public hearing. The time is 6:35. Is there anyone in the public that would like to speak in favor of the application?
Frank Miller, I'll speak in favor of it. Makes good use of an existing structure, in the right location, right character of the neighborhood. So I think that's a very good place to have that business.
Anyone else would like to speak in favor? Anyone like to speak against?
I'd like to speak
Yes.
in favor. My name is Susan Matheson. I'm on the board of Penny Valley Habitat. This store is one of our biggest revenue sources for the construction of homes throughout the 14-town catchment area. We operate from donations, so we're really confident that the increase in traffic will result in an increase both in donations and in sales. We utilize a cadre of volunteers from the community, including students from Mount Prospect, Holderness School, PSU, work-study students. We utilize volunteers on the build, but also in this location, in the store. So we're woven throughout the community in many different ways. The store is not just we're selling gadgets and widgets. This is more of a community resource of people giving of themselves and helping others. I'd like to speak in favor of it.
Anyone who would like to, anyone else who would like to speak in favor? Anyone who would like to speak that would be opposed to the application? Anyone of a general nature? Seeing none, I closed the public hearing at 6:37 and bring it to the board for any questions for the applicant.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I noticed that there was a recommendation to, I guess, delineate the parking lot with like paint lines on the parking lot. And I guess the applicant is in agreement with that request, or?
Yeah, so in the application, it actually says that the spaces are to be shown on the plan, but there are no actual requirements from the town to actually have spaces. If it was contingent upon approval to actually have those lines delineated, we're happy to, if it's required by the board. I will say that in the past, there haven't been any lines on that property ever, but we're willing to make that happen. If it's,
There actually are lines, they've faded. I was out there today, they're very hard to see. The building inspector concurred with my recommendation that you at least stripe your stripes. We're just a little concerned, there's cross-traffic from O'Reilly's and people backing up, you know, bringing furniture in, trucks backing up, you could get some incidences of
sure.
boom, and I don't think that would help things much.
No, absolutely.
We'd appreciate it.
Yes.
The other issue seemed to be signage and whether there's a plan for a sign.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, they're gonna want some signage. A plan wasn't submitted. That isn't necessarily, I mean, if it's a very low impact type of signing, it's not a master sign plan, then it's nothing that necessarily has to go before the board. But since since the only signage that is up is left over from Lakes Region
Right.
Community Council, I thought perhaps this would be a good venue to see what these folks would like to have for signage, and then direct them to the building inspector for advice on that.
Sure, so what's currently there is a 5x5, mostly circular sign. It just said it's backlit and it has a plastic rear lit, clear piece on there. And it just says Lakes Region Community Services. Now, the building owner has said we can reuse that, because that actually was an old sign from in the past that Lakes Region used. So he had no issues with us using that. At this point, we have a little different idea where we'd like to not have a backlit sign, just because of the light. It does kick up a lot of light. We're not going to have it lit all night anyways, but we were thinking of doing a banner across the front, and we want to find out what the limitations are. But I thought there was a Is there a picture of the front of the building in your?
So,
So it's a basic pitched roof, and we'd like a sign that would fill, because the small sign doesn't cover very much at all. It's a very limited space, but if we could go with something that was a little bit larger, but
On the building.
on the building, and not backlit, and we may light it from underneath into the eaves in order to reduce light pollution and light intrusion into the road, but backlight it, basically front light it down, and not have to incur the expense of a huge backlit sign. We can get away with a banner, we think. It would just be the normal, it would say Habitat for Humanity, Pemmy Valley, Restore.
that will require permits, so, when you come up with a sketch of just basic dimensions and stuff, just pop into town hall and, did you meet Brian before? I can't
I've
remember.
spoken with them.
Okay, so you could get the permit. It's quite a simple process, and he'll help guide you through it, so.
Any more?
If we do in-window signs, does that require a permit to?
Not if it's in a window.
Okay.
There's case law on that, so you'll want to have a conversation with Brian.
Are you going to have storage outside the building?
We do have a box trailer, like I don't know what you would just see goods delivered in, that was donated to us, the rental fees, we don't have rental fees on it, by Page Street Rentals. But we were told by Roland that we could put that way down back around the corner, not be intrusive to the cleanliness of that area. It's pretty tidy right there.
Are you going to have like storage for doors or windows outside?
In
Outside?
that trailer.
Just in the trailer, not outside? Okay.
Nothing outside.
Okay.
Yeah. Everything's under lock and key. We won't have any outbuildings or anything. It'll just be that one trailer, and the idea is to have it around back, out of sight, out of mind.
And then the exterior lighting is,
There is none there.
It's
Yeah.
very minimal, if anything.
Yeah.
And you're-
There's some lighting that comes from O'Reilly's. They have
Right.
one that's
There's
semi-close,
ambient.
but there's nothing in the parking lot. There hasn't been in the past.
are you going to be open at night or?
Our hours are till 5 o'clock.
Okay. Any more questions?
No.
Seeing none, is there a motion?
I'd make a motion to approve with the condition of the striping of the parking spaces and proceeding with the signage, through Sharon and Brian Murphy as required by permit.
I'll second that.
It's second by Bill Bolton. Any discussion before we have a vote? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Is there any abstentions? So I guess it's unanimous then. All right. That brings us to item B, presentation by the Plymouth Village Water and Sewer District System Overview.
I'm gonna move.
Is this cards for you? My name's Mary Louise O'Connor, I don't know some of you. And I'm the administrator of the Water and Sewer District. This is Jason Randall, who's our superintendent. He's been with us for about a year. We're very glad to have him. And hopefully we've put together a presentation for you tonight that answers the questions that you sent over to us a couple of months ago. And then question and answer.
Just bear with us, we're gonna warm up the projector here.
Yes, Jason and I had fun with antiquated components earlier tonight. That's not exactly the highest tech, so bear with it.
You're gonna give them the paper
Lights, we
copies
can,
of them?
They should,
You got it.
Sharon, did you hand out the,
No, it's right next to you. I thought
Okay.
maybe you'd like to
Sure.
just.
there's a copy of our presentation
Great, thank
for your own use and review. It's gonna be quite a bit of data involved in this presentation, so if there's questions later on, feel free to contact me. Contact information is right there on the first and last slide.
Don't be put off or scared by the density and number of slides. We put these on the slides so you can have the data there, so you can keep it and look at it and refer to it, but Jason's promised me that he's not going to.
Every slide,
Review each
every
slide.
line, and
Yeah.
yeah.
But I think the information is probably what you want and what, what you can use later on.
We can turn the lights down, I was told, if need be, so how does this work for
Let's
people?
just see how.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty clear, but.
We can see just fine. Thank you. Very excited to. Where are the lights?
So, by Steve, the rheostat one, way behind Steve, would probably be the best for glare, but,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, it says spotlight, if you just crank, nope, yeah, just turn it a little bit, there you go.
I was looking up at the side itself.
Our project, not our truck. That was delivering a cutlass and a collar, 2 or 5 or 52 other contractors.
Not detecting it.
Doesn't help. No,
No, it's saying,
no number.
let's see if this works.
You almost had it before.
I left this on, I left it before too.
We
Now
had
it's
it,
going to
we
see.
had it going before. Right.
It's always the hardest part of the presentation.
What doesn't it do?
It's not rebooting. I left it on before and went into safe mode.
How about them socks, huh? There we go. It's like a black and white LCD projector.
That was close. First generation, I think.
Yeah, the color's not the greatest, but we'll make it work.
Seriously, though?
Yeah, it's cheap. Relatively cheap. Maybe water sewer can donate one.
We don't have
You gotta go
one. We
budget
borrow
that.
yours from me. For the schools.
Hey, John? John?
I don't think you heard yet, Mike.
Happy birthday, John.
Is it today? Happy birthday. And you're here with us.
You didn't skip your party for this.
Oh, this is the part.
This is the
I try to forget him.
There we go.
All right, there we go. Again, we'd like to thank you for having us tonight. And this is in response to a letter we received from Sharon requesting that we present some of our capacity and current flows and projections of where we're planning to go for your master plan update. So just a little overview of the presentation. I'm going to give everyone a general overview, background of everything that we currently own and operate. Then we'll talk about a little bit of the planning process, some of the things we plan to do in the next couple of years, and also needs assessment. We've gone out and addressed quite a bit in this year alone of deficiencies that we found throughout our systems, water and sewer, and how we're going forward and rolling that into our capital improvement program. And then the next steps, pretty much, if there's anything we can collaborate on with the town, we try to work with the highway department as much as possible for projects for paving and things of that nature. And then questions and discussions, we'll open it up to the room. We'll start off with water. There's some pictures of some current projects. Right now we're working on well number 2 to recondition and redevelop that drinking water well. We've also been working, DOT's been working in conjunction to response for salt mitigation up on I-93, and that's the products they put down. It's a smart ditch liner through the entire southbound side, and from exit 26 almost to 25, and currently they're working on the northbound side at this time to complete that hopefully before winter time. And that will hopefully reduce some of the salt issues that we've been seeing. Give you a background on Foster Street. Everyone know where Foster Street is. Right behind the Common Man, we have our well field. We have 2 gravel-packed wells at that location. One well is housed in the building on the top picture, and that's our primary well. It's been our workhorse for many years. That's the one we primarily use. And well number 2 is also a gravel-packed well out in the field area there a little bit, and that's represented by that hatch cover in the second picture. That's the well that's currently getting reconditioned at this time. And we're also updating that to provide a more sanitary seal around it. Existing configuration was a shaft and turbine pump and motor that was not waterproof and flooded once before. So in this new configuration, we're going with a submersible pump and submersible motor with a full, almost like just a normal homeowner's well with a pitless adapter coming out. It'll be totally sealed off to the elements. So we're hoping to get that up and running soon and back online. And we have a backup generator at this location that currently powers both wells in case of an emergency. That automatically comes on with a switch gear and can power those and take us through power outages. We also have chemical storage on this site. We treat our water with calcium hypochlorite, which is used as a disinfectant for any coliform bacteria that may be present. And we also use a sodium hydroxide solution for pH adjustment, corrosion control. Many of our pipes are iron, ductile iron, cast iron, and that's used to inhibit the additional rust and dirty water and things of that nature that can be a result of water flowing through those type of pipes. Next building is Reservoir Road Booster Pump Station. This is located up on Reservoir Road. You can't see this building from the road. You'll see the old booster pump station, which is a brick structure along the road, and this is out back a little ways down our access road. This was built in 2006, fairly new. It takes, so pretty much the 2 wells pump water throughout the distribution system and up to this location. And when the 2.5 million gallon tank, which you'll see coming up next, meets its demand, and the 500 million gallon tank calls for demand. This booster station transfers water from tank to tank, so it boosts it up to the 500 million gallon tank, which is a little farther up the road, and provides our high pressure system. So that's this building here. This is our Boulder Point Drive booster station. You'll see that on the Boulder Point Drive road heading up towards Walmart on the right-hand side. This booster station draws water from our low pressure zone and boosts it only for the shopping centers up there and Walmart. So that this was needed back in 2002 when the development was being built there, to provide adequate pressure to those buildings and facilities. And it also has one fire pump as well for those facilities up there, and that's an on-demand type pump. I also noted on the bottom we have 2 additional booster pump stations, one at Blueberry Hill condominium complex, and one in the old Reservoir Road booster pump station, and they're not active at this time. Old Reservoir Road pump station has been dismantled and is currently in disrepair, and that was not needed because of the new one that was built. And the Blueberry Hill pump station was never put online because it was built for future expansion at that location. So at this time, that one's not active either. Here's our 2 water storage facilities. To the left, you see our 500 million gallon water storage tank, built in 2008. Previously to that, it was a 0.3 million gallon, 300,000 gallons. And to the right is our 2.5 million gallon storage tank, originally built in 1972 and recoded in 2009. Those are some of the tank levels and storage operation which we currently use. Here's our available active storage volume. Most of this information you'll find as well in our water system master plan that was put out in 2014, and we provided that to Sharon, and I don't know if anyone had seen that prior to this presentation. A lot of this, like I said, a lot of this information is found in there as well. But you'll see our low service zone is supplied by the 2.5 million gallon tank, and our high service zone is supplied by our 500 million gallon tank. And you can see the capacities there, the elevations, gives you some minimum elevations to 20 psi, which is required for fire flow, and our active storage. These are a little harder to see, these maps, but this is also in the master plan. This is our distribution system piping throughout the town. You can see all the different sizes in diameter to the left, the length of each size pipe we have, and then the material they're made of. A complete inventory was done prior, around 2012, 2013 time frame. So it's a very accurate count of what we actually have in the ground on the water side. And the top picture, you can't really see it that good on here, but that just outlines all the different materials of pipe we have throughout the town. So different colors represent different materials. And also the map towards the bottom is the size and diameter of pipe that we have in different colors, in different diameters. So as you can see on there, there's quite a bit. Current standards for fire protection require any mainline transmissions to be 6 inches or larger. And as you can see, we have 4-inch or less diameter pipe, about 8,700 feet of that. So that would be something in the future that we are looking to upgrade into a larger diameter piping. And the picture on the right, that was from this summer on Fairgrounds Road. We replaced about 370 feet of 8-inch water main on that road due to settling along that stretch. Now here's our water demands. Here's our annual water pumped from 1991 all the way to 2014. And as you can see, the demand is pretty flat. There's really not much increasing trends or decreasing trends to tell here. 1992 looked like it was one of the peak years. I can't recall what happened at that time, but it looked like there was quite a bit of demand at that time. And this is based on, you can see the historic projected population summary on the right there as well, from 1970 all the way up to what we project out to 2033. And from pretty much now till 2033, we predict about a 12% increase. That's what most of this data is based on as well, for our capacity looking to the future. I don't know if you folks have any additional numbers, Sharon. Do you guys have any projections?
We don't, Office of Energy and Planning does.
Okay.
It's a little bit of a,
Yep.
it's a little bit of an estimate.
Yep.
But if you're 12%, that inclusive of that entire time frame, that's not annually or anything.
Nope.
It's over the whole
Over the
stretch.
whole stretch, yeah. And that's what most of these future demands and projections are based off of. Here's our different distribution service zones. In the dark colored pipe that you see in the picture, that is the high pressure service zone, and the lighter color along the pipe is our low pressure service zone. And like I said, those are delineated based on which tank is servicing those two zones based on elevation.
Excuse me, let me just
Sure.
tell the board, if anybody wants to see this in living color, our website, and these maps are pretty cool maps. You do have copies, I know. Some of you have copies of the one
I
map.
have a couple, maybe two.
But it's all in color.
Yeah, we've got the link is distributed.
Yeah.
The entire
Okay.
document.
I just wanted
Yeah,
to
it's
check.
a nice clear PDF copy of it you can view there. I tried for almost an hour to get the color to work on this projector, but it didn't want to cooperate. So yeah, as you can see, the total average daily demand based on the service zone. Currently, we're running about 450,000 gallons a day, which is 0.45 MGD. And those are distributed from the high pressure zone and low pressure zone pretty equally. There's equal demand from both pressure zones. And then here's our projected maximum day demand summary by service zone. Our maximum demand, 2013.77. Again, those are pretty evenly distributed between the high pressure and low pressure zones, and it's very minimal increase by 2033 to 0.85 MGD. So those projections, like I said, are based on the 12% increase, and we feel that there's enough capacity for us to work within the structure we have now, infrastructure.
Jason,
Sure.
there was a couple of spots where you were at the smallest diameter.
Mm-hmm.
Is there, and you said that at some point that would have to be upgraded?
Correct. Yep, we're assessing that currently, and it'll be in our future capital improvements plan.
When do you anticipate, if we can handle up to 2033 that year?
Yep.
Is there a way to tell when that might need to be done? And
Yep. Yeah, we have, we're currently prioritizing that. Those projections on flow are total projections, total demand throughout the entire system, what our wells pump, Those are not specifically through those smaller diameter pipes. We'd have to do further flow assessments and monitoring on those to determine actually how much flow is going through each section of pipe. We don't have the metering capabilities right now to provide that data, but we can get a overall idea by pretty much isolating the roads or the sections of pipe that those are on, and taking readings from customers' meters along those stretches and going back and adding all that together to find out what the total flow and demand is within those certain areas. And that's something up and coming. We haven't done that at this time. Like I said, the 4-inch and below is a fire protection requirement. So they're requiring minimum 6-inch diameter pipe, and this stuff was put in probably 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago at the time where there was no requirements for that. Looking at the high pressure zone, this is the 500,000 gallon tank. We have a hydraulic grade line of 794 feet. Approximate ground elevations 725. These are projections based on that 2033 year for storage needs, whether we're going to have a surplus or a deficit at that time. And as you can see, fire protection is taken into account in this table here, and the maximum fire flow required to be provided is 3,500 gallons per minute for 3 hours, which is equal to 0.63 million gallons, which is an ISO recommended maximum for a public water system, and that's based on their independent insurance companies require that to be at that number. And we take the calculation of 25% of our maximum daily demand for a peak hour and include that in scenario number 1 there. So it shows you our present active storage is 0.47 million gallons, and our current storage needs are 0.72 and 0.73 by the year 2033, which actually says we have a deficit of 260,000 gallons per day. So that tank was put in knowing that the booster station at Reservoir Road, which I just showed you, has pumping capabilities and backup generator power in the event of an emergency to add an additional capacity at 500 gallons per minute, which can effectively pump up the storage capacity in that zone so that we don't lose that 260,000 gallons. So it has enough power and flow that we can overcome that deficit by pumping up to it. So that's included in those calculations. And this is the low pressure zone. This zone is a little bit lower elevation, hence the low pressure. And the 25% projected equalization peak hour storage is 470,000 gallons. So similar to the 500,000 gallon tank, it shows a deficit here by the year 2033 of 190,000 gallons a day. And that can be overcome by utilizing more of the tank. We actually are, under our current operations, we're only operating at a tank level of 27 feet. And the tank with the dome on it is 39 feet. So right now our overflow, when we pump into that tank, the overflow is at 28 feet at that elevation, which is sufficient for our current operation. But in the future, we will have the ability to add on to our overflow pipe and bring it up to a full capacity of 2.5 million. That is the reason why it was constructed in that configuration, was because of overturn. You don't want too much storage capacity, because then your water will be aged, and you'd have higher pressures as well. As you come up in elevation, we'd be having higher pressures sending it down in the areas that don't really need the higher pressures. There's many folks that have pressure reducing valves at their homes and their businesses to bring that pressure down. So there's a fine line there of where you can bring the water up to and how much capacity we need. So that is also on demand from our 2 pumps down at Foster Street. So if there is a fire flow or an incident where it does draw it down significantly, we can produce up to 1,200 gallons per minute coming up to the tank if we need to. And here's a list of our ISO fire flow improvements. These are recommendations coming from Wright Pierce based on our master plan. And many of these are either a diameter constraints where the pipe was too small and they're upgrading to larger diameter, or there was a hydraulic deficiency in that area, and hence you'd have to have a larger diameter to increase flow. This is a general overview map of areas where are high business interruption risk. They ran a risk assessment on all of our lines based on commercial areas where businesses would be interrupted if we do pipe replacements in those areas. So we are aware of how businesses would be affected by doing improvements throughout this next couple of years. And we also have a map of traffic interruption risks. They ran models on traffic and provided us with some of the high major interruption areas, which you see in red there, which would be all of our main roads: Highland Street, Main Street, Route 3 North, going on to the Holderness side. Here's a list of our short-term improvements. These are improvements that were recommended to us, and they're not in any distinct order at this time. We've been working on a few of these already. New source water investigations. We've been investigating alternative well site over on Holderness School property to bring additional source water into our system. We have done 500,000 gallon and 2.5 million gallon storage tank inspection this past summer. Both of those tanks are in good shape. There was recommendations for some cathodic protection for corrosion control in those facilities. We're in the progress of doing Foster Street well inspection and cleaning. As a result of the inspection on our well number 2 there, like I mentioned, they found deficiencies there, and that's why we're upgrading. We're taking the action to upgrade that and recondition it. We are looking into SCADA improvements. SCADA is supervisory command and data acquisition. So that's pretty much a computer program that we're able to remotely monitor our system at different locations. We have systems set up at Foster Street to monitor pH and chlorine and flow, and those 3 parameters are hooked up into alarm systems. So if they go out of their set points, we get alarmed and we get notified to be called in. So that's pretty much what SCADA allows us to do, is to remotely monitor our system after hours and from a central location at the treatment plant. And we are looking into and working on Foster Street well improvements, which will include updated electricity and things of that nature. and as well as telemetry. Telemetry is a big thing because that's what calls these alarms out. If we don't have good telemetry, we won't be notified of alarms, or there'll be false alarms. So we're working on that project currently. Currently, we have phone lines that we're using for the, which is like a dial-up connection almost to a computer, whereas the recommended and the preferred method is more of a wireless radio frequency setup that we can get called out. It's more reliable in that respect. So those are a few things we're working on. I don't know if Mel wants to take a minute to touch base on a
Thank
few
you,
more.
Jason. The item, project number 2, the Main Street from Highland, from Main Street from Highland down to Warren, then up around the corner to Winter Street, water line needs to be replaced. And the engineer who did this work from Wright Pierce, Chris Berg, we asked him last year, we were trying to get ready to budget, which of all these projects would he prioritize as number one? And you all know, I don't have to tell you what an undertaking would be to tear up South Main Street to replace a water line. It's antiquated, I forget some of the details, but it's old enough that it really should be replaced. And so our thinking is, if the water line's gonna get replaced, should we also be doing the sewer line? And then should we join with the town folks to do storm drains and sidewalks and roof drains and all of it? So we haven't done anything yet on our end except to have a meeting with mostly town staff and some folks from DOT. And we've just commissioned Wright Pierce again to write us a grant for, it's a pre-development study grant, so that just coordinating this would be quite a project, I would think. The other thing that's just come to light recently, or at least to me recently, is Northern Pass is their current design is to go underground through Plymouth, through 3 North, right down Main Street. And so if that's going to be a reality in the next 3 to 5 years, does this project wait for that project? And and I haven't really heard feedback or hue and cry from local folks about that project. I mean, there's a lot of hue and cry about Northern Pass at all, but if that is going to happen, it would be a chance to capitalize on it. But you all know this, there's concrete and rebar all the way through. So that's probably why it hasn't been done for such a long time. But Chris Berg, the engineer, identified that as the #1 major replacement for water line. So I just share that with you because it's such a big impact project, and so that you're aware of it. Thank you.
So we'll move on to sewer. Does anyone have any questions on water infrastructure or any of that? Sure.
Well, so, that number 6 there, whatever the previous slide?
Sure.
You were doing like Boulder Point. Now, does Boulder Point, are you anticipating capacity for like the Soldier On thing and possibly more future development? And
Right, that was, that's something that needs to be accounted for in that, and boosters, pump station improvements there. Like I said, we're mostly telemetry items. That's our only pump station currently that has a radio frequency that actually relays to pump station 4, a sewer pump station, which goes dial up back to the plant. So it's an antiquated setup there, and so there's a lot of improvements that would go in that direction for that. But for pumping improvements, that would be something required for a project like Soldier On in order to boost pressure up multi-levels. This pump station was designed based on the current elevations of the facilities there, so anything higher and above and beyond that would need extra boosting capability.
If I may, the planning department, which is me, we do certainly reach out to water and sewer and include them under the department head report information. for major projects or any project really that's going to entail a lot of new infrastructure or connectivity on their part. So we're getting that initial feedback, and it's mostly important, or the initial importance is to keep them in the loop so they can help anticipate, because, you know, all of your work, and no pun intended, is fluid, and ours is too, so we're trying to keep each other apprised of things so we don't go into any corners, paint ourselves in corners.
On the current wells that you have, do you know where they're recharging from? The first part of my question. And the second part is the salt that's coming from 93 the major contributor, or is the salt from areas in town a major contributor, or is salt that's in the Baker River a major contributor?
They really haven't put an exact number on, you know, what percentage is coming from 93, what percentage is coming from the town. But overall, the conclusion to that was there is some sort of intrusion into our cone of influence, that's what it's called, around our well that draws the water in, that has been at a level that is high enough to be of a concern for a secondary contaminant level. It's not a direct health risk by any means, but it is an aesthetic issue. The US EPA and DES have I think it's a secondary maximum contaminant level of 250 milligrams per liter, where ours over the last about 5 to 10 years have been about the 150 milligram per liter mark. So it's not up to that level where they're even considering it an aesthetic.
Is it going up or down?
No, it's been pretty flat.
Flat.
Yeah. Ever since they did start monitoring it, it's been pretty flat. But salt is a chemical that is very difficult to remove from a groundwater source. There's no way you can really see whether it's down low or up high. You can do conductivity tests, but it's continually moving around and it's homogeneous throughout the levels. It's not really stratified like an oil would be sitting at the top, of a water column, where it's really mixed in because it dissolves in water. So
just to follow on for that, do you or the state DOT have any sense of how they're going to be able to tell if the work they're doing on the highway now is going to benefit you or not?
Yep, we've been discussing with them. They're coming up with best management practices to on their end to try to reduce it.
In terms of monitoring,
right? The next step is the monitoring step, and we will be in contact with them directly, whether they're monitoring their outfalls of that new ditch liner. I would assume there'd be some sort of a stormwater management permit they'd have to have in order to discharge that close to the river. But that's on their end at this point, and we're primarily focused on our wells for monitoring, and we're going to try to work with them to see if they can monitor the entire stormwater basin there. We've actually done inspections, catch basin inspections on that entire area, Route 3 North, the interchanges there. I've personally walked with the DOT engineer and located each catch basin and have done an assessment on that. So that they're currently working on some other deficiencies as well.
Phil, you had a question?
A few slides back, you don't have to go back, but
Sure.
you had like the business and risk, and just notice, where Highland comes into Tenny Mountain Highway. On the other side, I mean, it was like an old Google map, and there was like absolutely nothing where Riverside is. Now that's a business interruption risk, correct? Or you've already anticipated that the businesses are, okay.
Yep, yeah, pretty much the entire Tenny Mountain Highway would be a business interruption there, no matter if there was additional building or not. It would be a matter of prioritizing things based on density of commercial businesses. Most of the line in that section of roadway was put in the late 80s, so it is fairly new considering most of our infrastructure. And that was put in primarily on the demand from Tenny Mountain. Tenny Mountain had provided the funding to build pump station 5 and 4, which you'll see a little bit later on. On the sewer side of things, they do not have water going out that way at this current time, but a lot of that infrastructure was put in place and during that time period. So our needs there for replacement are less than in the downtown and the village area, which we have much older infrastructure.
Right.
Jason, before
Sure.
you move off forward, I just wanted to mention to Mr. Rhodes and anyone that doesn't know, and I'm sure you have copies of our, we call it the SALT study. Garrett and
Emery and Garrett. Yeah.
Emery and Garrett, who are the very prominent water geologists, and close by in Meredith, did basically a sodium study, and there's a report which is available to you, which talks about the recommendations for DOT and a list of other recommendations that we can follow up on to try to reduce the salt in the wells. But we are working with DOT. They've been up, the commissioners have met with them, and you know, the DOT plowing operations, you know, their charge is blacktop, get the skiers up, get them back down safely, and so it's a little bit of a priorities are a little bit mixed there, but they certainly understand what we're going through, and we're trying to work with them instead of, you know, fussing with them. And that seems to be working pretty well right now. Doing the smart ditch, and there's a fellow named Chris Carlucci,
Yep.
Carlucci at DOT, who's in charge of, he's the engineer in charge of this mitigation project, and he's keeping in touch with us, so hope it works.
Yep, and there's, we've asked them if there's any way of doing a salt reduction in that area, that stretch of highway or on and off ramps in that area. But based on the car count and the amount of travel lanes, they don't, their policy is to not reduce salt, and which is a safety over priority for them. So that's where we are with that.
Okay. So that's the smart ditch thing and the salt, you know, remediation stuff. I mean, initially DOT put in a ditch that I think like a impervious
Yep.
you know, material, and because of trees intruding through the, you know, the membrane and stuff, I mean, it became ineffective. So
Right.
you know, it's just kind of like going back to where they should have had.
Yep, they did admit that there was maintenance there that was foregone, and they've you know, it's been years since they've done any sort of maintenance there, and that was one of the things that we recommended and would like to see from them is, yep, you're putting this infrastructure in now, please maintain it.
Right.
And they did agree that they will take additional steps to maintain that stuff.
Good.
Yep. We'll go into our sewer side of things. This is our wastewater treatment plant. Average daily flows are similar to what water is. Pretty much what goes in must come out. So we're pretty close to that, about 450,000 gallons a day, and we're 0.45 MGD. We do see peak flows in excess of 3 million gallons a day. Those are specifically on times where we have heavy rains and colleges in town. We have a significant amount of what they call I&I, inflow and infiltration. And that is stormwater coming into our sewer system through manholes or other areas that are either broken pipe or things of that nature, or old storm drainage systems that are still connected possibly to our sewer system. There was a mass separation project, I believe in the early 90s, that they did in the downtown area to try to separate a lot of that infrastructure out. But there's still a few, there's maybe less than a dozen now that we know of tied-in storm drains that we're looking to separate as well. And that South Main Street project would address some of those, maybe half of them almost. So that is a significant intake of water. Non-sewer users, if you live on a private septic system, they approximate about 75,000 gallons a year to a leach field and about 1,000 gallons of septage every 3 to 4 years. So in the past year, in 2014, Plymouth residents produced 125,000 gallons of septage. So if you divide that by 1,000 gallons, about 125 residents had their septage tanks pumped out, which is pretty average for a town of this size. And it shows that it's promoting people taking care and maintaining their systems. Our collection system has sewers, about 25 miles of gravity mains and 9 miles of force mains, and we have 9 pump stations throughout. And our effluent disposal is to the Pemigewasset River in compliance with our current permit. And here's an overlay of our wastewater treatment plant. Pretty much from left to right is where the water comes in on the left-hand side. Preliminary treatment is at our headworks building, which removes debris, sticks, floatables, grit, which cause problems with equipment. Then it goes to our primary settling tanks, which removes 50% of the particulate materials. So anything that doesn't float or sink, it goes through there. It takes out floatables and sinkables in that section. Then it goes into our secondary treatment, which is our rotating biological contactors, and this removes greater than 90% of the organic materials and some nutrients. So we've been looking at, over the last couple of years, we've been averaging 98% removal of organics, whether it's a total suspended solid or a biochemical oxygen demand. We've had great removal. Our permit requires a minimum of 85% removal. So we've been doing great in that respect. Then it goes to our secondary clarifiers, and anything that gets passed through the RBC system, rotating biological contactors, there's pretty much bugs living on fixed media, and those bugs eat the organics, and when they die, they fall off into the water, go to our secondary settling tanks, settle out, and then that, what they call secondary sludge, gets pumped back up to a gravity thickener, and that thickener allows for additional settling before it is dewatered, and we send out our biosolids to be land applied. So all the solids are land applied on local farms after that, and then the water goes out past our secondary clarifiers, where you see disinfection and kills bacteria. Pretty much from that point all the way up to the next box on your left, closest to the river, the small box there, we have chlorine contact tubes underground that allow us enough contact time to kill the bacteria, and then we dechlor at our outfall before it goes to the river. So essentially, when it goes to the river, we have a chlorine residual of 0. So that's pretty much how the treatment process works there. We also take in the septage. The septage comes in almost directly to that gravity thickener and gets dewatered. So a lot of that is highly concentrated waste that we don't run through our entire system. So here's our flow and capacity. DES and our NIPD's permit requires that effluent discharge for be below 80% of our design capacity. So our design capacity at our treatment plant is 0.7 million gallons a day, or 700,000 gallons. So we have to maintain our flows below that 80% threshold for 3 consecutive months, at least. If we are beyond that point for 3 consecutive months, DES is going to come in and ask us to implement a plan to either upgrade our system or find out how to eliminate flows. So either one. It's very difficult to delineate and eliminate flows, you can't just shut people's sewer off. So at that point, we'll have to upgrade, do an additional upgrade to meet that requirement. But as of right now, you can see it's pretty flat, similar to water. We've had some up and down years elevated here in the last 10 years. It seems like there isn't a specific trend up or down. But the past year, 2014, we ran about 55% capacity. So there is quite a significant availability, before, another 25-30% before we do hit that threshold. So as the treatment plant, it is for the treatment plant, we do have that hydraulic capacity, and then there's also the loading capacity of our chemicals and of our total suspended solids and our biochemical oxygen demand that also come into play. So we can't look at this separately from that. Those two loadings and hydraulic loading have to be meshed together and taken into account for that 80%. You can see these are a bunch of our 36-month average and then our design 2028 loading conditions for raw effluent. As you can see that there is anticipation of increases, and we're able to at this time handle all that through 2028. So I won't go through all this step by step, but we also have information for our primary clarifiers. Pretty much each piece of equipment gets monitored on a, if not a daily, a weekly, or a monthly basis. So we report all this data that we take every month to the EPA and DES, so they can also monitor what we're doing. So they're right on top of what goes in and out each month. So it's not like it's an end of the year report that they're just getting. They're on top of you. Here's our rotating biological contactors. Interesting piece of information here. We have about 1,300,000 square feet of media in our biological contactors. So if you think of that on a grand scale, it's quite a bit of surface area that we're treating this water at. Secondary clarifiers, again, goes through all of our overflow rates and detention times. It gives you an estimate of how long actually it's taking to go through each process at the plant as well. So it'll give you, based on flow conditions, it'll give you a detention time and how many hours we're actually getting contact with each specific area throughout the plant.
Jason, a quick question.
Sure.
So the design loading conditions for 2028, that's what you anticipate?
Correct.
And what's the capacity of the system itself? You showed that on the previous slide for the hydrology, but not for these, is that correct?
For the design capacity of these?
Yeah.
That we have other information in our operations and maintenance manual that we can provide to you if you like that.
I was just curious.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Here's our dewatering. How much sludge production a day we're anticipating, and we get about a 25% solids when it all comes down to it at the end of the day, once it goes into the trailer to get taken off to the farms. So right here is our what they call a Fournier screw press. It actually takes the sludge like a pancake and squeezes the water right out of it, and then sends the solids up a conveyor. So, and here's our annual septage totals. As you can see, there's definitely a trend on this one. Back in 2006 was the last year, actually the first year with our current configuration, Muffin Monster they call it. And as you can see, the previous administration had recognized trends going up, and they realized that there's a need for additional removal of that concentrated solids, whether it's rocks or what we call rags, personal items, things of that nature, bathing suits, towels, anything that gets flushed down the toilet. There was a need at that time to increase their septage removal capacity, and then all of a sudden it went down. There's a pretty much a flat line from 2006 to 2012, and that was primarily due to possibly the way the economy was going. It was going down at that time, so maybe people weren't pumping their tanks as much, or possibly it was a piece of equipment that we received that haulers didn't like. So about 2012, 2013, the folks at the plant took that piece of equipment out of commission, and now you can see the flows are going back up. Septage haulers are coming in left and right, and we need an additional piece of equipment to replace that old infrastructure that wasn't functioning properly to meet some of these increased flows. So yeah, just about in 2 years, from 2012 to 2014, you can see we more than doubled our intake of septage. And that is a regional issue as well. We've been seeing septage all the way up from Franconia to all the way over to Haverhill to Canaan, Lebanon area, all the way over to Tuftonboro, Wolfboro, are all coming in to this area to discharge their septage. A lot of other towns don't have a treatment plant that can take septage. Some smaller treatment plants like lagoon style or smaller capacity treatment plants aren't able to take that concentrated loading of material and process it and have it come out on the other end clean. So we're very fortunate in our process to be able to take this much septage in and process it, but we do see the need for additional processing, kind of preliminary processing. So when people get their septage pumped out, there's a lot of rocks and sand potentially in the bottom of the tanks. So we see that the septage haulers dump it at our plant, and we get overtaken by rocks and sand and things like that, which gums up pumps and equipment, and it decreases the life cycle of our equipment. So we're looking right now to at a piece of equipment to remove all that before it can get to our process. But this is a great example of how things can all of a sudden snap like that, go through the roof, and you have to be prepared for that.
I know we're going long, but you might be interested, Jim's nodding. Those bars represent revenue that help offset our costs and will help. The replacement for this Muffin Monster thing is, we have money in our budget this year for design. It's complicated and it's costly. All of our equipment is very expensive because it's such a niche market, but if we continue to have those revenues, it will pay, this improvement will pay for itself and save our equipment as well. We had big discussions about.
Yeah, as of September 1st, we're already on pace to either meet or exceed last year's. So we had 2.5 million gallons as of September 1st already. So it's definitely time for septage. So we'll go into the sewer collection system, and that's it's a good manhole in town. I don't particularly know exactly where that one is, but it's quite a mess. So, like I said, we have 9 pump stations scattered throughout the service area. Pump station 1, as you can see on the map below, is directly across the street from our office on Old North Main Street. That pump station gets gets sewage flow all the way from Fairgrounds Road, Route 3 North area, everything coming down from that area goes into this pump station, and then gets pumped up to Green Street and goes gravity to the sewer plant from there. This pump station has a pumping rate of 500 gallons per minute, and based on a 5-year peak hourly flow in the range of 250 gallons per minute. So this pump station is about a little more than half capacity. This pump station would possibly need an upgrade in the next probably 5 to 10 years, and it would be contingent upon further development of our force main from pump station 4 as well. We're currently working on a 4,000 foot section off of Tenny Mountain Highway adjacent to the Baker River, which goes cross country. We're replacing that currently because that section of pipe actually had 7 breaks within the last 2.5 years. So that was a high priority replacement. But that end of that replacement pretty much ends at the toe of the slope before the high school baseball field. So if you looking off towards the Baker River there, at the toe of that slope before the river is where we're ending this phase of the replacement. And the remainder of that pipe, I'll talk about later on when we go to pump station 4, goes up through the ball fields up to Emerson and Highland Street. Pump station 2 is right outside of the rent-a-car place and the Common Man, right on Foster Street there. It's a small pump station. It is in disrepair. We currently are investigating the replacement of pumps there. But this pump station takes very minimal amount of flow. You can see an average peak hourly flow of 15 gallons per minute. It has an ability to pump 120 gallons per minute. This primarily takes flow in from the Common Man, the few residences there along Foster Street, and the rental shop there. And that pumps flow out to Route 3, which goes gravity to pump station 1. Pump station 3 is another small pump station. Has a peak hourly flow of 6 gallons per minute. Pretty much this pump station was put in on Pemmy Drive. It's at the end of the cul-de-sac down there, and takes flow just from residents within that subdivision. Pumps it up to Route 3, and then it's gravity from there. Pump station 4 is one of our largest pump stations other than pump station 1. This pump station sees flow in the range of 100 gallons per minute. It has pumps capable of 650 gallons per minute. This pump station was put in response to development on Tenny Mountain back in the late 80s. Like I said, pump station 4 and 5, the next one, were both put in during that infrastructure upgrade. The force main on this one, as you can see, is the dark line, goes all along the river there, comes up in the corner of the ball field, goes across the edge of the football field and comes out on Merrill Extension, and then makes a right up Emerson Street before it goes gravity on Highland down to the treatment plant. So this is quite a long force main we have here, and a lot of head pressure. The 7 breaks that I mentioned just a little while ago were primarily due to transient head pressure coming back throughout the system when the check valve at the pump station closed. So it's pumping at about 60 to 80 psi, and when the check valve closes and has all that head pressure coming back, it can be in excess of 180 to 200 psi coming back, and it just blew the line out. It was class 51 unlined ductile iron, and that was another issue with this section of force main. was it wasn't seeing flows, maybe it's about, I'd say 20% of the actual capacity that this pump station can take right now, because it was built with the anticipation of the build out on Tenny Mountain. We have an agreement with Tenny Mountain Condo Association for 100,000 gallons a day. And you'll see in a later slide on their flows, it is not anywhere near that. So the low flow means long retention time. Long retention time in a force main means sewerage goes septic. And when sewerage goes septic, it's highly corrosive. So between the corrosiveness of the sewage and the pressure coming back, blew the line out. Here's pump station number 5, which is out on Yetton Road. This pump station, like I said, was built from response to Tenny Mountain. As you can see there at the end of the line on the bottom of the screen, that's where our system starts and Tenny Mountain's system ends. Anything beyond that is owned and operated by Tenny Mountain Condo Association and is their responsibility to maintain. So it's gravity all the way down Yetton Road to our pump station, and then from there it has a little bit of a lift up to Tenny Mountain Highway, and then it's gravity from there down to pump station 4. This is pump station 6A and B, and what we're looking at here is River Ridge development down near the high school off of Highland Street. They have 2 pump stations that are privately owned, but we maintain and operate them. We have an agreement with them to do that. So they have very little flows too, 11 gallons per minute in pump station 6A and 8 gallons per minute in pump station 6B. And these flows get pumped up to a point just to the right of the red line there where they come together, and then it's actually gravity. It doesn't show it on this map, but you can almost see the cut through the woods there. It goes gravity across the elementary school fields all the way to the high school fields, and then down behind Langdon Park all the way to pump station 1 from there. So this was what I was talking about on our pump station 4 force main. Our next phase of replacement is potentially evaluating going up to the ball fields and then going gravity to pump station 1 instead of going all the way up Emerson Street to Highland before it goes gravity, which would relieve some of those pressures from that section of line, but would also mean upgrading further pump station 1 to handle that capacity. Here's pump station 7. This is out on Fairgrounds Road. As you can see, it's just past Cooksville, almost across from the old fairgrounds, down in the hollow there. This is where we did a project on this summer of about 370 feet of the force main from pump station 7 up to about Pemmy Commons, the top of the hill there. We did the force main, the gravity sewer, and the water in that section, primarily due to settling in the roadway. So yeah, this pump station sees a flow in the range of 35 gallons per minute with a pumping rate of 250. So yeah, this pump station pumps all the way back up Fairgrounds Road, just across from Morgan Drive, and goes gravity from there down to Route 3 and then down to pump station 1. And then pump station 8, which is our last pump station, is all the way out at the about halfway down Fairgrounds Road, right by the church there. You'll see a stockade fence right in front of, I don't know, is that the Methodist church, or I don't know what church it is, but there's 2 churches out there, and our pump station is directly in front in the stockade fence for that. And that just gets a short stretch of this portion of Fairgrounds Road that comes back to it and then pumps this pumps up to pump station 7, which goes on and takes it from there. And this is the end of our sewer line on Fairgrounds Road, as well as our water line. So we go no further west on Fairgrounds Road than this. And here is Tenny Mountain effluent weir flow data. So Tenny Mountain, all the roads and the condos in Tenny Mountain Condo Association come through with this effluent weir before it goes into our system. So we don't provide them water, so we don't meter them for water, but this is how we meter them for sewer in order to charge them the fair amount. But as I understand it, there is additional condo associations on Tenny Mountain that aren't connected at this time. So that would be possible future expansion there, which like I said, we do have an agreement with the Tenny Mountain Condo Association for 100,000 gallons, and they're only pumping on average about 8,800 gallons a day. So there's a ton of capacity there for future, possibly getting other condo associations to tie in and things of that nature.
Does it help at all anywhere on Tenny Mountain Highway to add to the capacity? Or it really only matters at that spot?
No, this was designed pretty much pump station 5, which is on Yetton Road, and pump station 4, which is fed from 5, were both designed in conjunction with Tenny Mountain back in the late 80s when they were anticipating that 100,000 gallons a day, which we agreed to. So the capacity there is there's plenty of capacity for their future build out if possible.
Well, I was asking Tenny Mountain Highway, is that any more further development on Tenny Mountain Highway, is that going to help with the capacity problem, the lack of capacity that you're...
But there isn't a lack of capacity, there's plenty of capacity.
Plenty of capacity, I mean, the
Yep.
lack of affluent going into would...
Right, it would help.
It would help.
Yep.
Okay, that's what I wanted.
Yep. And we're designed to take that. Engineers, when they were designing this force main previously to this year, were looking at going to smaller pipes, which would increase velocity and flow over time. But we kind of steered them in the other direction to keep it at the same size pipe existing, because we do have that agreement in place. So this, at this point, we're just anticipating possibly build out there, possibly build out on Tenny Mountain Highway. So there is the capacity there for that at this time. We have 3 privately owned and operated pump stations in our system as well. The first one is the Plymouth State University pump station out on Route 175 in Holderness. That's pretty much right on the side of the road between the 2 sports fields there, the ball field and the field hockey field. And that pump station is owned and operated by Plymouth State University, and it was upgraded. It was originally built in 1966, but it was upgraded in 2013. Excuse me. And some of the proposed numbers are there. They took into account the new Allwell Center and any anticipated build out of that property, and they're estimating about 102,000 gallons per day is what they anticipate. Their current daily flow for PSU and the Holderness School, because the Holderness School is gravity fed to this pump station as well, was about 80,000 gallons per day. So they are anticipating about 20,000 gallons increase over the next couple of years once they finish the build out there. And Prince Haven Apartments is another pump station that's privately owned and maintained, and as well as Plymouth Apartments on Morgan Drive. That's another pump station that's privately owned and maintained, and we are currently in the process of garnering records from them in order to include in our reports and our anticipations and capacity evaluations for their infrastructure. So future flows. This is just a general overview of residential versus commercial development. What kind of values do you put on a residential development? How much flow is anticipated per person, per house, per subdivision? This is just some of the basic math that can be done when you're looking at things of that nature. In general, there's an average about 70 gallons per day per capita. That's a general number that some engineers use. And then I just put an example of the development, how to do the math, how to anticipate how many gallons per day, gallons per hour, gallons per minute would be the average for that type of build out, as well as peak day flow at six times the average. And then same thing with a commercial development. Typical commercial development is about 2,000 gallons per day per capita, based on one commercial unit. But that's highly going to vary depending on the type of establishment. Obviously, a restaurant is going to be different than an auto parts store. So that's going to be taken loosely on that value. But it gives you an example of average commercial development of 3 commercial lots, say 5-acre lots at 2,000 gallons per acre per day. Gives you the estimated flow for those locations. And then capital improvements program, like I mentioned earlier in the beginning of the presentation, we're currently evaluating the state of the district's assets. Like Marilise mentioned, I've only been here for about a year at this point.
1 year yesterday.
1 year, yeah, 2 days ago, yeah. So it's I love it. It's been great place to work, and the guys are great, and the facilities do need some work, and there needs to be some good planning down the road. But I think this town can do real well on their future sewer and water infrastructure. So we want to determine the required sustainable level of service for our residents. What is the definition of sustainable in a water and sewer environment? It really highly depends. It could be you could get a ton of build out. You could get no build out. There's really no way to anticipate that other than doing population studies. But we want to be able to maintain at least what we have or a better level of service in order to keep everyone that is currently on sewer up and running and flowing. We don't want things to break down to the point where we're not able to provide services that we do anymore, which would be a detriment to the community. So we want to keep those sustainable. We want to determine which assets are critical to sustain performance. Again, that goes right along the same lines. We in our master plan, we have engineers that laid out what infrastructure, just like I said, the high risk stuff, the smaller diameter stuff, hydraulic deficiencies, things of that nature, which are critical. We will prioritize those as we move forward within the next few years here. And we want to determine also the minimum life cycle cost. So when we go and put this new piece of sewer main in now, force main in now, we're already going to be planning for the next time it gets replaced. In the past, stuff was put in, and they said, great, we can leave it go for 100 years. And like I said, that section of line was only maybe 25 years old, and it was breaking down. So we want to make sure we keep our life cycle costs to a minimum and plan for that replacement as soon as the new stuff goes in. That would help with rates as well. We're doing stuff that's proactive and not reactive. We also want to determine the best long-term funding strategy. Obviously, the best way to fund something is to save for it and pay for it outright, but it would all depend on grants and funding and things of that nature. Right now, We're applying for many grants, asset management program grants for water and sewer, and those would take a significant amount of cost away from some of these capital improvements and offset those. So, continual improvement, plan, do, check, and act. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Mel?
I think you have questions
Okay.
on your last slide.
Yep. And our last slide, Albert Einstein, that's one of my favorite quotes. It's a miracle that curiosity survives formal education.
Any questions from the board? John?
Not that I'm not an engineer, so to make it simple. On Tenny Mountain Highway, there always seems to be a stopgap of every development that goes out there, of the cry that this is going to completely annihilate the water and sewer system. And my question is, do you believe that the water department of Plymouth and the capacity of the water and sewer department, if the Tenny Mountain developments were fully developed, will you be able to keep up with them? That's one question.
At this time, sewer related, we will.
Water related.
Water related, we don't have water on Tenny Mountain. They have their own water system up there, and that they own and operate.
Okay, and secondly, if all the non-purpose service that are going to be needed to be used for a full development of Tenny Mountain Highway, do you feel that that is going to materially affect the salt capacity that will affect the wells of Plymouth?
Sure.
Do you mean development on Tenny Mountain, the mountain, or Tenny
No,
Mountain?
both the Tenny Mountain and the Tenny Mountain Highway. Basically, the Tenny Mountain Highway.
We do have water out to Walmart.
Okay,
We have sewer all the way out.
I realize
to the
that,
mountain.
yeah.
But we don't serve them with water.
But they're supposedly going to be developing a lot, and also Tenny Mountain Highway, per se, is going to be, there's a possibility of a large build-out out there over the years, and it always seems to come to the fact of everybody saying, well, we're not going to have the capacity for the water or the capacity of the sewer, or the salt is going to completely annihilate our systems.
Well, I think on all these slides, you have the data to answer your question about capacity.
Well, as I said, I'm not an engineer. All of that data really is no use to me. I just want a simple answer.
For the foreseeable future, we have plenty of capacity.
Okay.
On the sewer side,
Water side would be dependent on elevation in that area. If there's build out, like I mentioned earlier, further up from the Walmart booster station at an elevation higher, there would need to be extra booster pumps provided to make enough pressure and fire flow protection in that area.
I'm not worried about that section because everybody seems to be quite satisfied with the south part of the Tenny Mountain Highway. The northern part, where most of your commercial buildings are coming in now, the motel and everything like that, that always seems to be a stopgap for some of the residents of Plymouth, indicating that there'll be a catastrophe if we...
It sounds like what he was, I want to move the conversation along, but it sounds like that's a lower elevation, so it's not going to be a problem with water, and there's plenty of capacity for sewer. Any more questions?
Just
Yes.
one quick question about stormwater and stormwater capacity, especially as we look at more build out on Tenny Mountain Highway. Just wondering if that factors into capacity at all.
Nope, that is totally separate. That would be on, I believe, the town highway department to determine that capacity.
And state.
Right, and the state,
Highway.
yeah.
For catch basins and
Yep.
figuring out where the runoff
We
to
do-
go.
Essentially,
We don't want the stormwater. Right? And that's the I&I, the infiltration, sometimes we get it because things weren't separated. We have to process it if we get it.
Right.
And it's
That's why we have our internal, or the developers have their internal systems.
Any other
Or for any
questions?
new development.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank
Oh,
you very much. for
thank
your
you.
time.
Thank
That was pretty
Very
informative.
informative.
Thank you so much.
Very interesting. Good job.
A lot of information.
I know it was long.
Need any
but
further
just put it out.
information, know where to contact me.
Well, I think he hit on a couple of the things we need to look at.
Sure.
Closer for our master plan.
Yep.
So that was really.
So that brings us to item,
Do we have to sell it to you guys, or?
I'll leave the main presentation on this computer as well, so you guys would have access.
All right.
Awesome.
It seems really odd.
Thank you very much.
thank you, Mary Lee. So that brings us to item number C, continuation for the site plan review PID 212-046 Riverside Landing. And this is a continuation from September 17th. So we had a few questions that, we have some information that we received, and we'll let the applicant answer the questions now.
Hello. Sorry, I was just getting things set up here. And Sharon was going to get a copy of the letter that I'd like to refer to. My name is Will Davis again. I'm with Verizon Engineering representing Riverside Landing. Thank you. Just an update from the last hearing. We have coordinated with Mike Vignali on all of his comments. We provided a letter and a revised plan set, which I have here, and I think you all have a copy of. He's satisfied with our responses and revisions to the plans. We have also received alteration of terrain permit approval from the state for the project. And I'd like to address, if there are questions on that, we can answer them. I guess I'd like to address the three issues that the board presented last time. So if you have a copy of the letter, I'm just looking at the end of the letter, additional planning board questions.
That's the Horizons letterhead.
So one of the first, the first question was the question about the overview plan of the entire property and the location of that infiltration that we were talking about last time. So might as well just dive in and take a look at that one first. This is an overview plan of the whole property, sheet 201. So this is the McDonald's and the bank, the proposed hotel site, and then this is the retail store that we're discussing now. So I guess I'd like to just step back and I can just kind of step through briefly the permitting process to kind of reiterate the pad development that was discussed last time. So originally when this development was planned, there was a large pad area which encompassed all of the current development as well as this outline that you see out to here. When the design engineer did that and permitted it, as part of the permitting they provided an infiltration basin for the pad. What's happened as the developments have taken place, each site has been done in sort of in a vacuum, and they have provided the stormwater treatment, detention, and everything required for the state as they move forward. And so the pad itself has not been created past this point. So it's still permitted, and That's why we've carried it through. And if the developer chooses to build the pad before another project is in place, they would need to build the infiltration basin. So currently, it's a grassed meadow, and so as they build the pad, they either have to, like this project is proposing, provide most likely an underground chamber system to detain and infiltrate runoff for that particular project, or they'll build the full pad and then do the infiltration basin and await the next development pod. So I guess maybe we would take questions on that particular part right there.
Okay, so just to, so the infiltration basin that's shown there, and that was shown on the original plan set that you had last week, that was a proposed infiltration system for the proposed pad. I mean, the basin, just for the pad. It wasn't a basin for the field per se, is correct?
Correct.
Yes.
If they were to put in the 10 feet of fill or whatever it is that needs to be filled for this entire area out here, that's when they need to.
Okay, so that was not to control runoff on the undeveloped portion of the site?
Not on the undeveloped portion, correct.
Okay.
Right. Okay. The second item was question on the lot coverage for the hotel site. So this is in reference to the sidewalk and road widening proposed by this project. There was a question about the fact that we're increasing impervious area, and the property line for the hotel site comes to the center line of this road roughly.
Right.
We did look at the numbers, and I have them in the letter here. The new lot coverage is 58%, so we're under the 75% with that property. There was a detailed letter with several attachments provided from the traffic engineer, Steve Pernoff.
They have everything.
And the result of that was that there would be no significant increase to the intersection, and he didn't feel that anything needed to be done to that design at this time. I didn't mention in the letter, I failed to mention, but we did add, there was another request for some added landscaping. On the north side of the parking lot, and so there's been added a row of plants on the north side. We also modified some of the landscaping proposed in the hotel entrance because that entrance island is getting a little bit smaller as a result of the intersection design. So I think that addresses the questions, so I'm happy to take any additional questions at this point.
Are there questions from the board, now that he's clarified?
I would just as a point of reference, and I don't know if I gave that copy or not, but date, can't read, it's too late, September 25th, no, you didn't see it, but, I'm sorry, that was Fairfield Inn Suites, but anyway, Mike Vignali has signed off on Mr. Davis's response to Mike Vignali's original points of redress. So you've got the quid pro quo back. So, yeah.
So, if everything has been adequately demonstrated to us that he's answered all the questions, then I would be willing to entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the project.
Okay, is there a second by John Kelly? Any discussion?
I'd just like
Yes.
to make a comment. Just thank you very much for crossing all the Ts and dotting all the Is. And the traffic study especially was quite well done, so we appreciate it.
Sure.
So any discussion on the motion on the table? What are we considering for
Well, that's the thing, that would be my question. If you're at this point of
Yes.
discussion after a second, you had some concerns and they have been satisfied. Of course, we always have the boilerplate in,
Right.
proper connections. Oh, by the way, I'm sorry, did you mention when I was downstairs, Will, that Mr. McGinley, the developer, has received a contingency of approval from Plymouth Village Water and Sewer,
Oh, good.
based on the outcome of tonight's proceedings. So unless there's some details I've missed, that is waiting and will fall into place also.
So it's just the boilerplate conditions at this point?
Well, right, there's a fair amount of them because, this is a,
Right. So, and the motion is fine with the boilerplate conditions. The second, you're all set with that, John, too? So, if there's no further discussion, I will call the vote. All those in favor of approving the application here tonight signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed would say nay. Seeing none, it's unanimous. So, that is done. That brings us to correspondence.
yes, if you just give me 1 minute to shuffle all this paper. And you have copies of all this paper, so,
Thank you very much, by the way.
yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, we'll be in touch. And you had a primer on Plymouth Village Water and Sewer oversight, so you got some extra information for staying so late. Couple of things. First of all, I had given you a very small print extract of or whatever, for abstract for a survey for
Yes,
the skateboard park. You can just put that in your pocket for now,
okay.
and I will keep you apprised of things. It's just that everything's fine, it's just the configuration, the process has changed. Everything's still good, pending. It's just how they were going to go about it in one fell swoop, or just pull the skate park out from a parcel, a gift of a parcel. So that's done a 180 the last 24 hours. I did want to mention Foster Street, which is really interesting in conjunction with the presentation that we just had. I don't know if everybody's aware of it, but I'll give you a real quick overview. There are some problems down on Foster Street because it's at wrong angles, literally, to the railroad grade. It's an at-grade crossing, and it's creating all kinds of problems, and that's a very sensitive area there. The interchange with 93, Route 3, Foster's Inn, now there's scoops there, it's an active rail line. Anyway, myself and the Board of Selectmen and the Highway Department and our town engineer have been working with DOT on this for the last 18 months or so. It's coming along, albeit somewhat slowly, and from no one's fault. We're dealing with federal funding now, so it's a total different ball of wax. Federal highway monies directly, rather than another pot of monies that we were going to use before from DOT, which would have been a lot simpler to implement. But nonetheless, it's chugging along, and it's going out for advertisement and subsequent bid in a few months. But this letter that I've given to you, copy of the letter, and if you notice on the back, it's gone to just about every department in town, which is excellent. This is addressed to the board as a whole statutorily. It's Bureau of, DOT Bureau of the Environment, it's not DES. DOT has their own Bureau of Environment to do due diligence with and for, and I'm putting it out to the board, anyone's individual or institutional knowledge of any of these items. Please get back to me on them. I will, take up your mantle, if you will, and address what I can. And we've also got these other folks, particularly the Conservation Commission. So you're doing double duty here, but I'm sure Lisa's gotten a copy of this. And we will all be working together to see if there are any environmental concerns out there. And environmental doesn't necessarily mean, green stuff. We're talking impacts that the project may create on several different levels. So that's what that is in terms of correspondence.
Any new business?
Oh, you have new business, don't you?
Yes. let's see. For new business, there became a vacancy on the select board recently, and the select board have asked me to step in on a temporary basis to fill the slot. So for a short period of time, I'm going to leave the planning board. So Steve will take over as temporary chairman. Rebecca will move in as temporary vice chairman, and we will need to nominate someone as the non-recording secretary. So this will be my last planning board meeting for a few months.
Whoa.
So are there any nominations for was Steve still an alternate? I don't know whether he can be nominated or not, or whether it's John.
No, because he'd have to appoint himself to be chairman were he to be it's like Speaker of the House. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
is
line of
anybody that
succession.
would like to nominate? Yes.
I'll nominate John Kelly.
Okay. Is there a second? All right. All those in favor of the election or temporary placement of John as a non-recording secretary signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So John,
Happy
you're
birthday.
it.
Yeah, you might want to check that one.
Any other unfinished or other business?
I don't believe so. We had a really great meeting, and wow.
It was
And
very
I know who
informative.
I'm going to call. I mean, I've been in contact with Jason a lot, but he's just got phenomenal knowledge of the Plymouth system, so,
You could tell that.
yeah.
He didn't put that just together for us, did he, that whole power?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, yeah.
And-
Well, I mean, a lot of the stuff was from, but whatever.
And thank
He
you.
did a phenomenal job.
And thank you for the question, John, that you asked, that we got an answer to, and it was very informative about Tenny Mountain Highway. And so that brings us to public comments.
Well, the public comment is that we had a very constructive meeting tonight for the people, and it was a very good process. Thank you.
All right. That brings us to item number 9.
So moved.
All right.
Happy birthday.
Yeah. So, seconded, and meeting is done at 8:27.